Hello and welcome to A Spot of Positivity. Hope you're doing well. I'm just going to have a sip of my tea as I do. I don't know if you've been joining me for my recent videos, but I've been sharing a little bit about what it was like to have my son go to the hospital with his diabetic coma and all that, and the kind of stuff we were experiencing as parents and family as this is all happening. You'll hear the wind howling behind me today. This is crazy weather we're having today. Sunshine, rain, all that kind of stuff in Cyprus. And meanwhile, I'm happily drinking my tea, but I thought I'd share a little more what was going on. I'm just going to say this teacup is something I bought during the time that David was in the hospital, because we were staying at somebody's flat they'd kindly let us use. We wanted some big mugs and we were too far from home, so we bought a couple of these things, and I bought this mug that says "Life is Lovely" on it, which was kind of really weird thing to be buying right then, since life was more like intense right then. And I thought, well, life is lovely, so I like the color and all that kind of thing. And life is lovely indeed, and we're very thankful for life. We're thankful for our son being alive. We're thankful for ourselves being alive, and it's a good little reminder. But sometimes I'm tempted by color and packaging and all that kind of thing, and it was a cheap mug, but I'm happy for it. And life is lovely. I left you last time talking a bit about I had this kind of fainting episode in the hospital and all that, and also how my husband was enjoying going to visit David in the evenings. And I was also mentioning that I'd met this wonderful lady with his daughter there as well, and she told me a bunch of stuff about, Cypriot culture, and also that whole thing about once a baby, always a baby in Cyprus. You're always somebody's baby. And we had a kind of a horrible little moment. I think the second or third night that David was in there, my friend and I had been waiting for hours to see our children in the ICU. We were in the little ICU waiting room, had a nice time together, but really quite a long time to see the kids. And she finally got called in, and as I was leaving, she could spend some time with her daughter. And when Chris went by that night, he called and said the daughter had died in the ICU. Her really dear little daughter had died, and I think that brought, it was quite a sobering thought for Chris, and I was really upset, and there's nothing I could do to really reach her again, because we hadn't exchanged numbers or anything like that, and of course she wouldn't be in the ICU again. So I had really come to like her, and I appreciated how kind she'd been to me, and I was so sorry because I'd heard all about this wonderful daughter and what she was like and how she was a fighter and all that kind of thing. So it was really quite awful. I'm still hoping I can find a way to get in touch just to say I'm sorry and all that kind of thing. And I'll see if I can still try to do that. It was just one of those kind of strange feelings where you've met somebody in a strange crisis moment and may not see them again. And the doctors and nurses were really upset too, because it doesn't happen much. They don't often lose any of their children that are there, so it was quite a traumatic day. Meanwhile, Chris said to mention this, he was really following David's numbers, so his glucose levels, his sodium electrolytes, how his kidneys were doing, how his pancreas is doing. And I think it gave him a little bit of a feeling that he had an idea what was going on. David's glucose readings had been like off the charts, 1,000, and they were coming down very slowly. We were told it had to be done slowly, to check. Just you didn't want to make it go too fast so that it could cause some damage and stuff. And they were also concerned that it might be swelling on his brain. They said there's a faint chance of swelling on his brain, and that's one reason they were keeping him sedated. He just wasn't ready to come out of it, and it was a little troubling because they at first had tied his hands and his feet so that he wouldn't like pull off his various tubes and kick things away, kick the doctors, all that kind of thing. Once he was sedated, obviously they didn't need to do that anymore, but no one likes to see their child tied up. So that was kind of upsetting. Meanwhile, though, went in there and I would let him listen to songs people had sent to me and read messages and prayers and stuff people had sent. And sometimes he'd make a little noise, and sometimes he'd moan or something like that. And it felt like, he was in there and it was going to be okay. But it was a bit of a journey. So meanwhile, we'd go trade places. I'd go home in the evening and have my Greek course. And I found it incredibly difficult sometimes to concentrate. And we were learning like so much in Greek. And I was sitting there going, I can't take this all in. And yet it was kind of cathartic to have something different, I suppose, to do something in the evening. I wasn't just sitting around thinking about it. And I had lovely, lovely messages from people coming in and saying, we're thinking about you, we're praying for you. And sometimes sometimes it was difficult to concentrate, I'll just say, and as I got messages in class, but I was trying to see them all just because mostly they were really, really nice to see, and it was helpful. I mean, we had, I don't know how many groups around the world in different places we didn't even know. There's places like youth groups that had passed the message on to other youth groups to pray for David, so people that we don't even know in Scotland and probably and different countries as well were all like thinking about David, praying for David, and here we were. But again, Chris would come home and he was happy. Like it was like he'd been with David, even though there wasn't much response. But by let's say he'd been in an instance Wednesday, by Saturday they were starting to reduce his sedation, and so they slowly let him come out of that. So then you would get a little more response. He started to get a little bit of moaning. His eyes would open for a second. They had a physiotherapist come in, which I thought was hilarious and really, really good, because he'd been sitting there in a big lump for so long. And she was lovely, and she was moving him around and doing stuff with him. And she just said the sweetest things to me. Like she said, he's just not ready. Meanwhile, he got, I'm not sure what the order of this, he got an MRI scan on his brain, and just a minute, there were two other things they got on his brain. He also contracted pneumonia, so it was like sick in different ways. What are the other two? I was going to say electrocardiogram, but that's your heart. EEG, to check for stuff, any problems in his brain. And a CT scan. So 3 different things on his brain, just to make sure he was okay. But in the evenings especially, he was starting to just be slightly responsive. So when I phoned some of his friends and let them talk to him, and he would go, some kind of little moan like that, and they were really, really encouraged, and I was as well. So that was the thing that was starting to happen then. So there we are. That was part 3 of the saga. And I'll just be happy to say that there's more good news coming. And you'll hear a bit more about what it was like for us. Thanks for listening to A Spot of Positivity.